Hey, y'all. I'm thinking about this trip that I took to um, Black Mountain / Montreat area, North Carolina, many years ago. It's a memory and reflection or diffraction of that trip. And I used to go there pretty often because I was a member of a Presbyterian church in Atlanta, and Montreat is a Presbyterian town in North Carolina. Really, they own the town. And it's very rich, and the people at that church that I went to, several of them had homes there, or their parents had homes there, and there was a retreat center there that we went to pretty often. It's also just outside of Asheville, to give context, so it's a pretty there's a lot of wealthy people that live there, and then there's also a lot of Appalachian poverty. And so it's an interesting place. So this trip was with that church group, and over a Labor Day weekend, and one of my friends and former clients had joined the church and or was attending and went with us on this trip, and I was driving my van, and so a lot of us carpooled together in my van, including my friend who was black, and most of the other people, members of that church and people in the group, were white, middle class, or rich white, very well educated. And there's memories I have from this one particular trip that I think I've kind of throughout the years attributed to several different trips. And today I realized it kind of all happened over a 3-day period. And it's interesting. So this is kind of my story of my trip to Black Mountain with a black person. And in relation to race, class, it's always class, and our responses, our first response to hearing new information, stuff that's different than we've ever heard before, and kind of feels, how we respond to that. I'm not articulating it very well. I'm sure later I'll think of the perfect short term to describe what I'm talking about. So anyway, on the way, one of the first things I remember is as we pull up to one of the church members and one of my friends' parents' house where we were staying, which was her parents' vacation house. My other friend, who was a client and who had very insecure housing situation for many years, said, "Oh, this is a nice house," and it is. It's like it's a 2-story on a basement log cabin in Montreat. It's a very nice house. And it was very nice to be able to go there for free a lot. And so my former client, person having housing insecurity, says, this is a nice house. Who lives here? And this is a memory that comes back to me a lot, because in that moment, I thought, this has become normal to me. And I took a deep breath and I said, No one lives here. This is the other person's parents' house, vacation house. This is their extra house. And, the former client, she had a moment of like, oh yeah, I've always heard that exists for people, but I never could imagine that, really. So here it is. Here is this thing that I've been told that people have, and here it is. So, and that was more discomfort for me of realizing, having come from such abject poverty, and like that throughout the years, I had just kind of shifted and realized what had become normal for me. Now, I didn't have a second home and things like that. I was just taking advantage of my closeness to other people, other rich people, right? This person has a house on Lake Lanier. That means I get to go to Lake Lanier. This person has, a house out in Montreat, so I get to go to Montreat. This person has a house on the beach, so I get to go to the beach. That kind of stuff. But it became normal. And it was something that was shocking to somebody that I was so close to had become normal to me. And so that was, I still haven't reconciled that or know what my point is on that story, except that it does connect to the rest of this weekend. So then, this was an annual retreat and learning and things that the church did over a Labor Day weekend. And I think it was on Sundays that we had free block of time, and people went into Black Mountain to go shopping and things like that. And, so we were all out, group, we had lunch out, and we're going around, people were walking around, and I'd separated, people had kind of separated and doing their own shopping around town. And my former client friend, I see her and she's like, oh yeah, I was at this store and I was with, there's some, she named the other people. And then they went away and I was still out there looking at this outside display, and the woman comes out and, says, ask if she can help me. And she was feeling some kind of way about that. And my response was, oh no, I'm sure she... And then I stopped. Because I didn't want that to be what had happened. I did not want that store owner to have been racist. I did not want my friend to have just experienced that in a place that I like and consider safe and have decided, I did not want that to be the reality. I did not want her to have experienced racism right then, right there, and I did not want to have to deal with that. So I said, no, I'm sure. And then I stopped. And I said, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry that woman did that. I'm sorry she treated you as if you were a criminal because you were Black. And I'm sorry that happens to you all the time. And I'm sorry that I made excuses for her and defended her instead of hearing you and being here with you. And we do that all the time. We don't want it to have been that way. We don't want that person to have experienced that. We don't want this pain and this harm to exist in the world and to feel like we can't do anything about it. But it does, and it did. And she needed me to hear her and witness it with her and understand. And then on the way home, traffic was backed up for some reason, installed in my Google Maps. Said, oh, there's this way here, you can go around this. Then what it meant was you can go to the top of this mountain and back down to the other side of the mountain and you'll be past this. And it was not a very good idea, especially since you got to the top of the mountain and that part of the road that connected to the other part of the mountain wasn't there anymore. So you just had to turn back around and go right back where you were. But on the way up to that mountain, where it was not traveled very much, because it, like I said, was a dead end, there was some abject white rural poverty, like one of those like trailer compounds with broken down, old cars everywhere and just trashy, just really, really trashy. And my client friend had been taking classes with me and had heard me talk about white poverty and all of this stuff like that. But again, she couldn't really imagine those rich white people and how they live, and she can't imagine that poor white people actually exist. That white people are actually treated that way. And so we pass it, and I'm like, man, look, and she's like, nobody lives there. I said, what do you mean? Well, nobody lives there. That's just like a junkyard. Nobody lives there. I said, oh yeah, people live there. Probably many people live there. She's like, no, this is not, like she was looking straight at this rural Appalachian poverty that is all over the place, back in these backwoods, on these roads that people don't travel, or right in your face, because you can't see it, because you don't want to believe that it's true. She did not want to believe that it was true, so she could not see it. Even though she literally, I don't know, maybe she needed the people to come out and wave at her. Could not believe that human beings lived in that situation. Situations that I've seen human beings live in, for 50 years. That my ancestors have lived in forever. And they exist. But we don't want them to exist. We don't want it to be true. And it's so overwhelming to ourselves and our nervous systems that it is true. And it is so complex. And my friend, client, and those people living in that trailer compound have so much more in common. They do exist. And they exist so that shop owner and my friend's parents and all these other people can live in comfort.